Well, thank you all for joining us today. Before we get started, wanted to make sure to do a couple thank yous. First of all, thank you to the full Tech Nebraska team. You know, this was a lot of work and effort, and I think they crushed it. So wanted to make sure to give them a shout out. You know, the other is Northeast Community College. Thank you for hosting. I can tell you that the Tech Nebraska team has been raving about your support and putting this all together. The last is this community. You know, I've been fortunate to be a part of Tech Nebraska, you know, since it really got off the ground. We always talked about, God, we got to get out of the, you know, just the Omaha, Lincoln communities and get out into, you know, the other communities that really matter. And it can only happen with the support of the community itself. And this is one that just really embraced it. So it's really awesome to see. Thank you for investing your time. And we know that's extremely valuable. And so hopefully, if anything, you've connected with each other and sharing ideas. That's where a lot of the value is of this, and taking a few things away from the presentations today. So, you know, as we get started, you know, I'm Ryan Wade. Mentioned I'm a Tech Nebraska advisory board member. You know, excited to be here. Spend a lot of my time working with small, medium-sized businesses on AI, doing a lot of presentations right now. And so one of the things I just can't help to do, this is just part of what I do, but to gauge where you're at. So, okay, I'm gonna have you raise your hands. How many of you are super excited to talk about AI right now? Okay. How many of you are just like, we're having another AI conversation? Anybody fortunate enough? Jordan, thank you, appreciate that. AI is something you just hear all day when you wake up, when you're talking to neighbors, and you know you're at a social event. It just seems like it's just all over, and it means so many different types of things. So I think kind of understanding where your head is at is really important. But Dan had talked about, I can't help but get on the soapbox real quick. Being in technology for the last 15, 20 years or so, I've never seen anything like it. And I live and breathe it every day. And I feel this urgency, even when I'm talking to my family members and coaching my kids and things like that, that it's something that we have to get our arms wrapped around. This is different than anything else we've seen. And so I'm very passionate about it, and you know, excited to have the conversation with this panelist, and hopefully you take a few things away that can progress you in this journey. Because if, you know, in your next yearly goals, understanding where AI impacts your business, your employees, and your community matters. So that's a little bit of the context as we go in today. So I provided a lot of context. It's in my top 5 in terms of strengths and weaknesses. But, you know, without further ado, wanted to start with introductions from the panelists. You know, would like to know a little bit about you, you know, your organization, what you do, and kind of where AI fits in your world. Santosh, would you mind starting us?
Well, thank you. So my name is Santosh Petla. I'm a professor in biological and agriculture engineering. So I'm an educator and a researcher. I'm in Lincoln. I've been last 12 years, I've been working on agricultural robotics, automation, and AI, figuring out how we can use technology and now AI to make things better on the farm. Recently, I've taken the role of co-director of Nebraska AI Institute, which is across all 4 campuses, UNO, UNMC, UNK, and recently, and UNL, of course, and recently we have written a NSF grant, and thanks to all the partners here. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right, my name's Tim Lemons. I'm here from Norfolk. I'm the general manager of FieldWise, again, based here in Norfolk. Our company is generally into the design, development, the distribution and manufacture of telemetry equipment. So probably the best example you can think of as you drive around, if you're not familiar with agriculture, is the center pivots. We provide the technology that allows growers to operate, manage, and monitor those center pivot systems from anywhere in the world, anywhere remote. So that's the bulk of what we're doing. Inside of the AI realm, and what we're using that for is trying to take the decision-making out of the loop of having to go to the cloud and then to a server, and starting to embed that technology directly on boards so that the artificial intelligence can make some decisions on pivot health and agricultural health inside the other types of systems we're integrated to, without having to route all the way through communications all the way to a server and then back to the device itself.
Hi everyone, my name is Jared Daniger. I am a proud Norfolk native, so grew up here, went to grade school, high school, went off to college in Omaha, and I've been back now for about 17 years. So I mean, saw a lot of hands up earlier about not being from Norfolk, so really appreciate everybody being here. I work for a company called Applied Connective Technologies. So we are a managed technology solutions provider headquartered out of Albion, Nebraska. So we've got an office in downtown Norfolk. So everything under the sun from, helping do server migrations, moving to the cloud, managing a firewall, cybersecurity. So we help a lot of small, medium-sized businesses do that. And as far as like the AI journey, it's been around for a while. And I guess us as an organization, probably since the beginning of the year, have kind of just dove headfirst into it. So a lot of planning, a lot of strategy, how can we utilize it internally? And then two, just, as an organization that works with small, medium-sized businesses, how can we kind of position ourselves to help small, medium-sized businesses, not only in Northeast Nebraska, but kind of rural communities throughout Nebraska to start adopting and implementing AI.
Thank you. Hunter?
Yeah, you bet. I'm Hunter Bergman. I'm actually a Neely, Nebraska native, went to school here at Northeast, so it's cool to be back at an alma mater. And then graduated UNL in 2022 and moved back here and founded a company called XPM. And we help legacy family-owned businesses modernize their marketing and management tools. Started out just doing some side hustle to full-time websites, digital marketing. I love storytelling. And now as we start to see how people experience the web differently, user experiences change, how you buy things are going to change. So very passionate about that. I was also one of the first businesses to be incubated at Intersect Coworking. Before they were open, I was like, I got to get out of my grandma's spare bedroom. So I was there for 4 years. And I'm also a 1 Million Cups representative. So spent a lot of time with the community, lots of fun faces here. In terms of AI, we actually have an internal initiative called XPM Labs that kind of serves as our internal tinkering and education unit. We've been able to also do a lot of community outreach and help educate over 200 people across Nebraska on how to use ChatGPT and LLMs to increase their workflow. We really started getting into it because I won the Big Idea Challenge a little while ago, and I pitched a ChatGPT consulting firm because I kept asking people, hey, do you use ChatGPT? And they'd say, yeah, it's so good, so helpful. I say 1 to 5, how helpful? They say a 5. And I said, well, 1 to 5, how well do you think you're fully utilizing those tools? And they said a 2. And I was like, great, there's clearly a gap. So how do we actually continue to help, small to medium-sized businesses fill that gap with some education?
Appreciate that. I was thinking about some analogies here. You all have some experience. I stopped by saying expertise because this has moved so quickly and so fast. I had somebody ask me, how do you stay on top of it, or how does it feel staying on top of it? I'm like, nobody feels on top of this right now. And I constantly let my dog out in the backyard, and he chases this squirrel that just is nagging him, and he never catches the squirrel. That's my bad analogy for what it feels like staying on top of AI. But I'm just curious, maybe a couple leading questions. What are you doing to educate yourself? And maybe some of the things that you're kind of seeing and learning as you're helping your business or helping others implement AI or students. I'm just curious on your perspective there.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. I'm old enough to remember, having to do papers and having to look up the encyclopedia, the Britannica, and then even kind of venturing on in Carta, right? You can fit an entire, encyclopedia on one disc. So, how do you approach this? I think you use technology. You think of the evolution of, being able to search on the web and AI. Our ability to access information is as fast as it has ever been. So, I think the other thing, helping work with small and medium-sized businesses in Nebraska, just kind of seeing we're part of a couple different peer groups, so we get to work with technology integrators and providers from across the country. And it seems like here in Nebraska, especially in rural communities, we probably lag 3 to 5 years behind. So, just using the tools and being, somebody said it earlier, the human connection and it's not going to displace people. I think what we're doing right now, we're educating each other, we're lifting each other up. So I think it's a combination of things. Using the technology to help better understand and learn the technology, hearing different use cases from other industries, and then just really, it's kind of, we're all technology nerds, right? There's a reason why we all got into this industry, and I think one of it is, there's just an opportunity to continuously learn. So using the tools that are out there. I mean, there's times where I ask AI, like, I mean, somebody said it earlier, how can we better use you? So, I mean, even prompting it. But yeah, I mean, I think using the tools and technology that are out there, and then the people resources.
Yeah, I would even to add on to that, I've got kind of 3 bullet points. There's this podcast called Everyday AI, where every single day, Monday through Friday, this guy gives kind of an update, walkthrough, et cetera, of things. And
That's a really good one.
Yeah, he's been doing it for a while, and it's like 30 minutes, and just really helps me keep a pulse on like the major shifts, lawsuits, legal side, but also like features. Every week a new feature comes out of these tools. Number 2 is Notebook LM. If Anthropic or OpenAI comes out with a new paper, you can just throw that into Notebook LM and get a podcast for your ride. And then the third one is just YouTube University. I was like a YouTube kid growing up, looking at how to do different things, and there's some really good channels out there. AI Labs is a channel that is really for tinkerers, to show you how to set up workflows, loops, more like technical things.
Yeah, I have an analogy too. So it's called drinking from the fire hose, right? Really, that's been last 2 years of AI, and one thing about academia, as I work at the university, you get emails every day about, hey, did you see this? Did you see that? Like the latest has been Kimi K3. Anybody heard about that? That's like the frontier model that beat like Claude's Fable 5, and they'll release all the open weights of this model in a couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. But as an educator and a researcher, one of the things we really try to do with the students is, use AI, but how do you use it responsibly and ethically? So we have been working a lot on that. So use AI, but how do you attribute the sources? How do you critically think? So one of the best way to learn about AI is be critical about everything that AI says, and you'll learn a lot. So that's that kind of what we've been following.
Anything, Tim, from Dad? Oh, okay. All right. We didn't practice that. With working with your business or students or other businesses, what are you seeing from the positive side of what people are doing to, see value out of using AI? And don't worry, I'll go to the other side. What are some of the challenges? But maybe from a benefits perspective, what are you seeing that's really sticking out at this point?
I mean, particularly for us, one of the advantages we're seeing is we're speeding up our cycles. We're able to use AI specifically to rewrite firmware and rewrite programming very rapidly. So we're used to have to go to get programmers that were very good at base programming and machine language. Now we're able to just use bases and then implement AI to write the code that gets software development out much, much quicker. And it adds to the productivity of our equipment and the speed at which we can get devices into the field and into the markets.
Yeah, I guess, from a productivity standpoint, I mean, I probably use AI. It's probably 80% of everything that I do. Being in IT for nearly 20 years, I mean, there's a lot of things that you don't know, but you got a lot of tools and technologies to help you kind of figure that out. So not only would it be just, an alternative to Google searching something, but, if I'm preparing a bid for, a project, using it to help develop statement of works and, pull resources out there. I mean, I think I've got a brother in town that's a dentist, and you take x-rays and you try to identify what the problem is. And when you're able to upload that to AI and, in a matter of minutes, compare that x-ray to a million other, data points. And, it's been talked about a lot today, but, using it as a tool to improve what humans are able to do. But once again, I mean, just being able to sample a million different data points and say, we can say with 98% certainty that this is a cavity. I think that's pretty incredible. So I think it's going to help humans make less mistakes. It's going to make them more efficient. From our help desk, we solve probably 700 to 800 support requests every week. And then really encouraging our team. If you get an error message in an application that you've never seen before, a lot of times that's developed in there, but being able to use technology from our client experience standpoint, we're able to resolve problems faster, we're doing it more efficiently, and as an organization, that makes us more profitable and more efficient, so.
One thing that I've seen that's really been helpful for us is really just keeping information in one area and being able to query and find what you need faster. Some of these documents some of these companies we work with have lots of like standard operating procedures that just go to a file and die. And so now we can bring those SOPs to life through skills, through custom GPTs, through project files, instructions, etc. Prompts as well. One tool that has really actually helped us speed up our like project management. We do a lot of project management internally for the companies we work with, and it's been ClickUp. ClickUp has a ClickUp Brain feature, and so now it talks like with my like AI note taker. It talks with my project management system, and after the meeting, I just run like our post-meeting protocol. It analyzes the transcript, compares all of the notes that we previously had taken, also like all of the open projects, and says, oh, here are 3 things that like need to be put into project management. Here's the email to your client, and then also, here's some notes for the next meeting and agenda, which has saved us probably 3 to 5 hours a week just in that internally, and then we've helped some other businesses implement that to help keep them run more efficient meetings, but also I felt like I kept saying like, oh, I feel like we just talked about this. Didn't we just talk about this? And it's helped us really eliminate that like amnesia to some degree.
I just add real quickly to that. So Hunter's on the leading edge, and maybe not all the businesses are there yet, but learning from his experience, I would say something practical that businesses can do is, one, I talk to so many business owners that feel like, oh, John or Jane has been with us forever. When we lose them, I mean, we're in a tough spot because all of that knowledge is trapped in their brain. And AI is such an amazing tool by having a recorded meeting or using like a Plod device to just capture what's going on and how they go and how they think, and capturing that in text. Because once you have that, I can tell you the AI tools today, let alone the AI tools in the future, are going to be able to use that in so many ways that creates that competitive advantage for your business. And so those are things that you can do for very little investment. It's just recorded meetings and then have AI put that into documents or trainings or whatever it may be. Something that, kind of gets along the lines of what you're talking about, Hunter, with, the second brain as us tech nerds talk about it. But, some practical things I think most businesses can take advantage of. Yeah. Santosh?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll talk about benefits in 3 buckets. So research, education, and workflow productivity. But before I jump into that, I also want to talk about AI is not one thing. There are many layers to it. So there is a traditional AI, which is the machine learning, deep learning, which we have been using in research for the last 10 years. But then 2022, we all know what happened. ChatGPT was released, which is like a generative AI. So there are very specific use cases for both. So in agriculture, precision agriculture, digital agriculture, one of the things we use AI, which is like a deep learning model, is to tell a difference between a weed and a corn plant. And you spray only on the weed. So by doing that, farmers can save up to 60 to 70% on spraying costs, right? So this is a great example of deep learning where these cameras are analyzing the plants, both weeds and plants are green. So how are they differentiating, right? So that's where AI is very powerful, which, the most experienced farmers cannot do, right? So it can differentiate in real time and spray or till only the weed. So that's one use case, which is excellent on research. We also try to do a lot of prediction models on the yield based on, the planting date, the fertilizer application, soil conditions, rain. So it can also give you a prediction on yield, what it is going to be. So that's kind of since I work in digital ag, and there are many use cases in medicine and other places as well. When it comes to education though, so, every student learn in a different way, right? So the traditional way to do it is we have a syllabus, we have weekly schedule, okay, this is what we're going to cover, but every student understands things in a different way. In addition to creating a lot of hands-on experiences, we can give AI chatbots as tutors so that they have access to it. And then again, we go into this responsible and ethical use of AI. They're going to critically discuss this with the AI chatbots. And let's say you're dealing with the electricity as a topic. So they can go and learn about motors on their own, but then we can have a rich discussion in the classroom. So that's one way we are using AI. And workflow productivity, this is amazing. Notebook LM is one of my favorite tools. And if you have not used it, you should use it. So it's probably one of the best learning tools because any topic you take, you can bring in all the sources, whether it's a YouTube link or a journal publication. So you can put all of that in this library and generate a podcast. That's one of the best ways, driving here 2 hours. Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts that was generated by me. So I think these are all huge opportunities and benefits of AI. Really, if you have an idea, you can really accelerate learning and build something tangible out of it, yeah.
So in talking about taking advantage of AI and some of those benefits, there's people there. Implementing any technology, it's only as good as, the skills and the ability for a team to kind of grasp onto that. So I'm just curious from your perspectives in terms of, maybe a lot of us in the audience don't have full-time software engineers working for us. So what are some of those skills and things that you're seeing that people need in order to kind of embrace this technology and leverage it in our businesses?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that. Maybe not so much like people skills, but on the small business side, I mean, one thing I work with small businesses on is really getting them to understand. I think it's an investment, even though there's a pretty low cost to get into AI as far as like the chat bots and then even having agents created. It's really understanding, and I think you need to take an organizational approach to it. There's a reason why a lot of there's free chats out there. A lot of times that they use the information that people are prompting it with to be able to further train it. So as a small, medium-sized organization, who in your staff is using the free versions? What data are they uploading to it? So, I mean, one thing we talk about is like shadow AI. So, as an IT provider helping small businesses, how can we help put some controls around this to make sure that the business is secure, their data remains safe, they're not having their staff upload that. And two, I mean, you kind of mentioned, taking a more strategic organizational approach where you're signing up, as an organization with one of the services, having it sit on top of your data. I really like that with the Notebook LM. I mean, one thing that we're doing internally, to assist our HR is, it's kind of a rules expert. So we have all of our SOPs, kind of our company handbook information, and then really it allows our employees to just basically chat with this to help supplement our small HR staff because we're a small business. So, the other thing there is it's a big initiative, and two, knowing that the value that can be there. We talked about manufacturing. There's a lot of large investments. You go through, adding a piece of equipment. You have to go through the whole change management process of training your staff. Giving them time to ask questions and really understand that. And I really think that any organization that's looking to implement AI should really take a similar approach. You don't want to just kind of go out there guns ablaze and just open it up to your team. I think Scott mentioned the long TIG weld, right? So like that's a great example across any small business. What's something that you do constantly? It's very tedious, and humans are very prone to making mistakes, especially when doing, monotonous, tedious tasks. So, being able to automate that, if it's trained properly, there still needs to be guidance, there still need to be controls there, but if you're able to train an AI agent to really automate some of those really monotonous, tedious tasks, it's gonna do a better job and it's gonna do it faster, so.
Yeah, for us, we have kind of a three-phase approach to helping, say we're working with a new client for the first time and they're curious about how to like apply these tools. When they're probably already using it and they're just like dumping it and not naming chat, like it's kind of a dumpster fire. We're like, okay, let's take a step back. Why, when, where? The three-phase approach we do is to educate. Number one, which LLM or provider is best for you? Which of these companies best align with your guys' like values? I think that's really important. How big is your team? Who's going to be using those things, all those things to just educate those individuals on, do you need custom GPTs? Do you need projects? ChatGPT has like work now, and then Claude has co-work and Claude Code. And so you're really educating individuals on what is the scope of these platforms. And then we can go down to like document. So what we really do is kind of like, what is the architecture of all of the technology used? So you use Google Drive, you have QuickBooks for invoicing, you have Otter.ai for your meetings. Like, what are the tools that you're using right now, and how can you get those to like talk to each other to some degree? So then we can kind of give them a map of where everything is at. We also make that map readable by like chat or Gemini, et cetera, so it can help collaborate and say, oh, maybe there's a better way that you can do those things. Then the third one is delegate. These tools are starting to show up a little bit more in our actual like project management systems or Slack. Now you can plug Claude and Codex into Slack, and you can say, hey, at Codex, please start working on these things. And so now we figure out what like you mentioned, we do an exercise where we say, what are the tedious tasks where you spend the most time? And then we rank those by the repeatability and likelihood that AI could replace that, like quick win. And then we're able to just say, let's focus on these two things first. And then be able to, now use the system they set up to be able to execute that.
So one of the interesting parts that we ran into, some of the challenges, we keep talking about the human element. So it's really interesting that they named it artificial intelligence, not artificial wisdom. So what is wisdom? Intelligence driven by experience. So what we find, especially in the ag space and the true ag space, is we're missing some of the experts that can ground truth the stuff that's coming out of AI to say, yes, this is a value and this is true, or this is not. So in a previous career step, one of the companies we worked with out of Silicon Valley, we were developing some agricultural sensors and some software. We actually had to fly them out from Silicon Valley. We took them to Neely, Nebraska, into a field to say, this is a corn plant, and this is a soybean plant, and this is a weed. Because that's the level of experience that they had. Super, super intelligent, super, super good at drawing intelligence out of the internet and out of the space. Not very wise on how do we apply that and how do we make it have value to our growers. So that's one of the things that we really look for is how do we continue to use the human element, especially in Nebraska. I look mostly at Nebraska. How many of you guys have a connection to the farm? Yeah. How many of you guys back in the 90s and 2000s when you were growing up and you said, Dad, I want to come back to the farm? What do you say? Don't do it. Why not? It's hard work and there's no money. So what happened to a lot of our kids? They went somewhere else. They went to banking, they went to marketing. We've actually had a hard time trying to get agronomists and animal scientists to come back into our space because they've been trained in the paradigm to say, it's not a good field to be in. But now as we're starting to develop more of these tools and we're using a lot of AI, we're finding it harder and harder to find good, trained, experienced agronomists to put in the field to ground truth what AI is telling us. And we also need those kids who have farming experience, because how many guys drove an open-ended tractor through a hayfield? Yeah, that was experience. You learned a lot about what AI and technology can help you do, especially in those rote tasks that you had to do every day. So now we're starting to develop some of these tools. We're putting them out onto the farm, and the farmers are telling us, this is really cool. It has no value for me. It's not doing what I need it to do. So who has the best experience to tell us what we need on the farm going forward to make it more efficient and grow value? And also, that equation of trade cost, what's the value versus the cost? A lot of it is those kids that are sitting on the farms today and working them. So our real pull is to get those kids back into agricultural through the agronomy space. And especially when I work with students or we have interns, one of the things they ask us is, what comes next? And I ask them, well, what's your major? It's agronomy. Yeah, and? It's the yeah, and. What's the yeah, and? AI, technology adoption, engineering. Build that next tool set that you can use the experience you have to build on top of a new tool set to bring new value to the farm. So that's probably our greatest challenge right now is really getting that human experience back to the farm.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, I think experience is so important, right? So, and the context and having a domain expertise to fully take advantage of AI is going to be important. Have you ever witnessed like ChatGPT answers like, oh, that's a difficult question I cannot answer? Have you experienced that? ChatGPT will always have an answer, right? It will always
confidently
give an
wrong.
answer and confidently wrong, right? So that's why it is, again, going back to the responsible use of AI, it's important that we have domain expertise. Like we need agronomists, we need agri-engineers, like really critically reviewing what these AI tools are saying. And also going back to one of the important skills, what everybody needs to know to fully utilize these tools are, prompting. We all know this, but I would like to talk about like 3 buckets. One is AI literacy, AI proficiency, and then AI fluency. Okay, so let's just talk about AI literacy for a bit. I mean, I would say you can get the most use of these AI tools if you can prompt, which is talking the language of these AI tools and then giving them all the context. And you can give the best context if you have good domain expertise, right? So prompting is probably one of the most important skills, and you can take advantage of 80 to 90% of the capability of these AI tools. So,
A few thoughts, and appreciate all that you offered there. I mean, some of the things that we're seeing right now, and we're doing a lot of surveys of people that we're working with, is your team members and yourselves are just experiencing a lot of emotions about this technology that we've never really seen before. I was having conversations out in the hallway with somebody that basically said, one of the challenges I'm having is, part of what the value I bring is that expertise. And so now I'm just hesitant to use these tools because that's part of, what I bring to the table. And there's a lot more people who are going to be facing that. That's just a challenge that all of us leaders in our communities and our businesses are just going to have to work through, because it's not going away. And I think, so as leaders, we're going to have those swings and kind of emotions, but, we need to lead from the front and basically kind of get ahead and give access to these tools and, the training and the right resources for all of us all to kind of wrap our arms around it. But I just, as you were talking, I mean, that is just a reality. And I think we're shifting from kind of the doers to the reviewers. It's kind of like the same process of when, you go from just doing the work to managing people doing the work. There's this shift you have to have in your mindset of, my value is not clicking that button. My value is making sure all the buttons are clicked. I mean, that's kind of the shift that we're all under with AI right now, that I think it has a lot of the human elements. And I don't think anybody has it figured out yet, but I think that's why we get together and share what we're learning and going through together, so we can progress together as well. So, I think we have probably time for a couple more questions. I mean, where are you advising, yourselves, your businesses, or others in terms of how they get their arms around what value they're getting, the productivity gains, and the cost side of the equation? I mean, I think it's, if for us that live this and breathe this every day, there's a shift that's happening in terms of the cost of these systems. You can get started pretty inexpensive, but as you start to leverage some of these models and they're charging you per how much usage, the cost have shot up quite a bit. So I mean, ultimately we have to get return on investment. So I'm just curious how you're guiding or what you're learning in terms of how people are tracking the progress they're making, what they're understanding and learning, or maybe the value that they're getting, and understanding the cost of these systems as well.
Yeah, I'll take that. So, I mean, I think one thing is kind of going back to something I mentioned earlier is having, some strategy involved. So one thing we've done, we kind of formed an AI council. So we're real big on our internal culture and then customer service. So those are two of our key staples at Applied Connective. So we kind of formed an AI council. So whether it's, an agent that we're going to roll out internally for our technical team, or if it's going to be something that, maybe is client facing, it could be something marketing, but we formed this AI council. So, everything that we do with AI, if it's going to be something internal, if it's going to be something that we're going to roll out client facing, we're going to run it by this AI council. So it's kind of it's a diverse group. They're not all IT technicians. We've got people from all across the business, but if we do something, how's it going to affect our people? How's it going to affect our bottom line? If we do something client facing, how is it going to affect them? I mean, we're big, even though we're a technology company, we're big on the human experience and providing, that experience for our clients. So, I mean, I think every business should, be very intentional about their approach. I know Jeremy mentioned, to ask a very large AI budget. And two, even since the beginning of the year, I know that there's large corporations that had strategies and they set budgets. And I read articles that, 4 months into the year, they already exhausted their budget because I don't know if it's changing so fast. I don't know if it's possible to have a 100% concrete plan on how this is going to go. But once again, I mean, I think for our case, we've heard a lot about it today. It's not going to replace, I don't think we're at a point where we're going to replace jobs, but how can we have people do their jobs safer? How can we do it more accurate, more efficiently? So I think it's kind of the low-hanging fruit approach.
Are you working less right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I was thinking earlier, like writer's block. I don't do a lot of writing, but if I have to write a letter or something, or even if I'm working on something with our staff, using it just for thought, stimulation and thought, just generation, it's one of the best things out there. I mean, it's crazy to think, I mentioned the Encarta encyclopedia and Google and all this stuff, but right now we have the most intelligent being known to mankind in our pocket, and we can ask it a question whenever we want.
Where my head was I'm working tons of hours right now, and so the question is how much time did you save with this task? And I know you're there too, Jared. I'm like, I'm doing things I never could have done before.
Yeah.
I'm producing things that weren't even on the map. So it's kind of hard to then, from a management perspective, say this hour went down. I mean, some tasks for sure, but there's other of producing output that wasn't possible 6 months ago. And so it's kind of hard, kind of wrapping around some of those metrics. So some of it, I completely agree. Be intentional about it, but also understand most of us are in research and development mode.
Yep.
And so that it's more about what you're learning and the awareness you're gathering, and just know it needs to be flexible. But starting off with a goal of driving customer service up or those type, I mean, that gives you a mile marker to go after.
The one other thing I just thought of too is, you look over the last 15 years as far as how organizations are using data. Your top Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, every single one of them is using data to get better at what they do, to find trends, find new ways that they can go to market. So, I mean, that's where I think there's a real opportunity, is not only just using the chat, but kind of taking that next level where you can integrate, chat GPT and have it sit on top of your data. So if you're a CPA and you run UltraTax, or, you're a law firm, you have a practice management software, and being able to integrate, a chat with your accounting system, with your productivity system. And then I think that's where you're going to get a tremendous amount of value. As a small team, let's say you have 15 people, you don't have the budget to hire a data analyst, but once you get AI to sit on top of all your tools and are able to generate that data, you're going to make faster decisions, you're going to make better decisions. But once again, it's not eliminating, it's supplementing your staff to help generate that data and bring some of those opportunities to light.
Yeah, so again, going back to your question about, some of our colleagues are not comfortable using AI. So I think one of the ways to think about this is, we talked about human in the loop, but I think it should be human in the center, right? So because it's like a lot of times we do this mistake of putting the technology first, AI first. I think AI is not a strategy, right? It's just a tool. The point is what are our frontline colleagues or employees dealing with? What is a problem that need to be solved? I think that's where we need to start. And going back to the hype train and the doom train, I'm on the implementation train because AI hype, it's hyped up, and we don't know the doomsday scenario, maybe security aspects, but really today what we need is the implementation. We all know we have an Einstein in our pocket. How do we best utilize it? But there cannot be one size fit all framework to use AI. So, I think starting small, piloting small, co-designing, co-developing with our colleagues is going to create more value. Yeah.
Tim, how about you? Have you looked at kind of measuring that?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of looked at it in a previous career path. We did it more as kind of a could we and should we. I used to always say you can change a tire with a hammer. It's going to cost you a lot and take a long time to do it, but it can be done. So it's really looking at the true outcome. What are you truly trying to achieve? And then is AI the right tool? And if it is the right tool, where do you put it in the loop? When do you start to implement that particular tool as part of the process? You can change a tire, but again, if you put the jack in at the wrong process or at the wrong point, you're not going to get anywhere. It's going to make it much more challenging for you. So again, first, making the decision, could we, should we? Then where do we put it in the process? And then how do we evaluate the output that tool gave us? And then do we move forward with using that again for a similar problem in the future?
Anything to add, Hunter?
Sometimes you can get into this, like, what does good look like? And like you mentioned, there are a variety of outcomes. And I don't know if you guys have been in meetings where we're trying to figure out, like, what is the KPI that we should measure? And then how do we actually measure that? And then continuously measure that. And so one of the things that I really enjoy is just collaborating with ChatGPT or your Gemini, et cetera, and saying, like, how should we measure this? Like, what do you think? And like red teaming it back and forth, and co-creating the brief and game plan with those tools, because you might see something from a different way. You can also have it like take on different personas if you would want to get a slightly different, more like risk adverse perspective, or maybe you want more of like a risk perspective, as a legal or financial officer, or maybe you want like blue sky thinking. You can kind of look at it a couple different ways that maybe aren't necessarily in your skill set. I'm a young guy. I'm still getting my chops in the industry and world, but it's a good way for me to kind of embody like some core wisdom, maybe not necessarily wisdom, but, articles from people who have been in a specific industry for a long period of time and say, what would this person think about these decisions? Or how would somebody with an operations mindset that isn't really mine approach this?
Well, thank you. I do want to leave a little time for questions, but since I have a mic and a soapbox, two quick practical things. One is, this is the fastest technology to reach 100 million users that we've ever seen. It took 2 months with ChatGPT. There's like 1 billion weekly users. Your employees and your team members and your students are using AI. And they're either on the free or personal accounts, putting your data in there, or you get control of it and give them access to business tools that you can manage. So my big soapbox is get them off of the free accounts. Your data is their product if it's in the free account. So one thing. The other thing that I'm seeing quite a bit right now is it's so easy to build with these tools right now that we forgot that not a lot of businesses have experience in actually doing software development and doing that in a stable and secure way. So there are processes and systems that need to be put in place when it goes from an individual application that has been built by somebody off to the side and actually getting that into your business. And so, I expect that these tools are going to make that easier on us over time, but it's not there yet. So if you have employees building things and it's very valuable, just know there's work and effort to bring that and release that to the overall business. So just a couple practical things I just wanted to take the opportunity to share with you. I certainly have another question, but any question for the panelist from the audience? All those people who said that they're excited about AI. Thank you, Dan. We'll give another shout out for Google Notebook LM.
Thank you, bud. Hi, I'm Danny. I buy buildings. Has nothing to do with my question, but I know we talked a lot about AI. I'd like to talk a little bit more about Nebraska. What specific factors does Nebraska have to enable large-scale AI adoption?
Personally, I think this technology is probably region agnostic to some degree. I think that obviously when you look at like the compute and data center side, that's like definitely not my expertise. So what I'm maybe speaking to is just adoption and literacy. And I think that comes down to networks like this and having conversations and tinkering with those things. I think continuing for Nebraska to be pretty connected state, in terms of our networks and things. Also resources and information right now, not even in necessarily Nebraska, but just on the web. These companies want you to use their platforms and they're making it pretty hard not to right now, just at some of the things that they're able to do. So I think that would be my answer. I think the people in Nebraska will sit down with you and, like not necessarily hold your hand through it, but they'll make sure that you come out the other side with a better perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it kind of starts with, industry leaders, business leaders, and even people in this room. I kind of mentioned earlier that in most cases, it seems like, as far as like technology goes, especially rural Nebraska probably lags 3 to 4 years behind. So I would say it kind of starts with education and then, just showing the value of what it can do. But it's a great question. I think, it's something that it'd be great to solve. How can we continue to, push our different industries to use AI and be leaders? But once again, great question.
I think working with the students I have in the past, they have a natural inclination towards agriculture. It's our largest industry in the state. So one of the things we can do is start to encourage the kids, especially in junior high and high school, to start exploring some careers that they can piggyback on top of the ag experience they have. How do you take that agronomy and then tack on AI and development? How do you take animal science and your experience in animal husbandry? How do you tack that on to technology and software development and AI and ag engineering and herbicide development and working with different systems, even through ecology and through natural resources. A lot of our kids have a ton of interest and experience coming from the farm to work in those industries. We just need to encourage them and to give them guidance on where they can go inside of industry to help Nebraska grow. Because I know one of the questions was asked, I think, in one of the previous panels, is what do we do with all these small towns in Nebraska? It's pretty easy to be a pretty good agronomist and put together some AI and some tools and do some things that you can really grow some fast value with the growers in your area. And I think there's some kids that could explore that as a really good career path.
Yeah, great question. So I say that, if you look at East Coast and West Coast, there's a lot of hype about AI. I think Nebraska is where rubber hits the road. Really, like there are agriculture, our healthcare, our energy sector. So we have amazing industries which can use AI to augment and amplify what we are doing. So it's a great test bed. Nebraska is a great test bed to deploy AI and scale AI. And like the fact of the matter is, like, everybody's sitting here. That's why we're talking about, right? How can we use AI to do things better? And Nebraska is a great test bed, I would say. And also, like the Nebraska AI Institute, which was formed like 5 months ago. So we're trying to bring together our community colleges, our state college system, our community partners, Tech Nebraska partners, everybody together, because there's a lot to do here. And then we probably are the difference between hype and what is reality, in my view.
Well, thank you all for that. And my closing remarks, because Dan walking up is like the Oscar music. You've ran out of time. I'd say that my perspective on that is some of those skills require curiosity and grit, because it's changing so much, and persistence. Like, those are core aspects of all of us in this community and in Nebraska. So that's our advantage. The other advantage is what you're saying, which is this is a tool that puts everybody on level playing field if they take advantage of those characteristics I just talked about. But as Nebraskans, we cannot, kind of go, oh, that's like the Silicon, or it's a West Coast or East Coast thing, and be afraid of just embracing it and taking the advantage. So, and we've been known to do that from time to time. So we got to leverage our strengths, but also know that this is something that's a huge advantage if we take advantage of it. So I think that is it. So thank you all for the time today, and appreciate your participation.
Awesome.